Hey YouTube, wanted to make a quick video of my build this league because it turned out pretty well. It's a Slayer using Smite with the new Vaal Smite in combination with Restless Ward and Calm Spirit to generate a ton of endurance charges based on all the regen you're getting from Restless Ward, and you're generating a ton of endurance charges thanks to the Slayer's Ascendancy Masterful Form, which gives you endurance charges equal to your frenzy charges, and then you basically just pick up all the uh, frenzy charges on the tree, and then you grab Disciple of Unyielding and Slaughter, which gives you frenzy charges on kill and endurance charges on kill, in addition to damage on both of them. And on top of that, we're also using endurance charge on melee stun and Assassin's Mark to generate more charges. I did have Blood Rage, but I found that allocating Ghost Dance on the new Sanctum relic to give you another layer of protection is far more valuable than generating more frenzy charges on top of additional attack speed. And the way you're sustaining your life, because you can't regen with Calm Spirit, the three ways I found is the first one is because you're a Slayer, you have Overleech, um, which basically continues regen as you go from pack to pack. And the other two are Recoup on life on your rings. And the third one, which is kind of minor, but I've enjoyed it, is you recover life when you suppress cell damage with this new unique. You could probably replace this out for a rare and get some more chaos res, spell suppression, etc., etc. But I really like this just because it has all the stats you want. I've managed to find a cheap one with a smite enchant on it, so it's fine. You could definitely do better than this, but the recover on life is really nice when you're capping out spell suppression. So it's mostly from the, where is it, spell suppression chance. So it's 87, but we have allocated here courage, which is when you hit an enemy you get 15, which caps it out. So before you have the gear, so I just have a base corrupted dark ray vectors for a little more. You can grab this wheel here to give you a bunch more spell suppression chance. And I'm personally taking these three over these two, just so I can grab this one, which gives you evasion and armor rating per your charges, which you're stacking both up to 8 of endurance and frenzy charges. And then we're also using the perseverance belt, which gives you attack damage for your lowest of armor and evasion rating, stacking both of armor and evasion rating, essentially free fortify because you get melee hits with stun fortify, and we're using the endurance charge on melee stun support, which essentially does the same amount of damage as a elemental damage with attacks gem here, except it also gives you endurance charge when you stun enemies. Even stunning enemies like bosses, if you like trigger a stunning hit, it'll give you a charge, so it's kind of good on single target, but this isn't really a bossing build. It can definitely kill bosses, but it's not what it's designed for. I personally have been using it for content I like to do, which on the Atlas has been obviously altars. You don't want to do the eater altars because they have charge stealing nodes, so it's really difficult if the monsters have charge stealing stuff because a lot of your damage is focused on the charges. But basically, I just do like doing delirium mirrors because you just walk into them, pretty low investment. Shrines just to give yourself a little boost. Harvest because this with Vaal Smite, you're extremely good at clearing large packs of like clumped up tough mobs. So you essentially, when the harvest spawns, you hit Vaal Smite. The rare spawn, you hit Vaal Smite again. It's dead. And the strongbox nodes here, just because I don't like rolling strongboxes, and all the sulfite stuff because I've been delving. That's where most of my income's been coming from.
Ah, a familiar.
I haven't delved down too far. We're just at like 130 or so, but it's also really good at delve because you can explore the darkness very easily with Overleech on top of Ghost Dance, on top of spell suppression, recovery, damage recruit, and how fast the build is. Because as you see, I'm not using a movement flask, but that's because for Restless Ward, we get 4% per frenzy charge, and we're rocking 8 frenzy charges, and the same here, we get move 5% per frenzy charge, so you're zooming pretty quick. And then we also have Berserk. I'm currently using Berserk on just a cast on damage taken, so it pops every now and then. But if you want to optimize it further, you can put it on a manual cast and then just pop it whenever you need to, zip around. It usually lasts for around 10 seconds or so, and you can sustain it for another couple seconds with Enduring Cry, which because you can't regen life, thanks to Calm Spirit, it just generates a ton of rage for you. but that's more of a quality of life thing. I don't like having many buttons to press, so just having that on cast when damage taken means it pops every now and then, and it's fine. Um, Void Forge is our main source of damage here, and this easily lets you generate Trinity because it alternates between all the damage types. Um, and our other big source of damage is the Secrets of Suffering from the Interrogation Jewel, which gives us Scorch, which is a 30% reduction in elemental resists, Brittle, which is a flat 6% base crit chance, which essentially sends our crit chance up to 100% with all the other crit and stuff we have in the tree. And then Sapped is just another defensive layer that's nice to have. And then you get it up all the way thanks to these two masteries here. Your crits have a 50% increased chance of non-damaging elements, and then the Elemental Mastery, a 50% increased effect of non-damaging elements. That'll essentially get you all the way up. They did nerf brillously, but you could still effectively get to 100% crit. It's not that bad. Um, the other stuff I have here is obviously this is replaceable. Darkrai Vectors are just a generic Frenzy Charge boots you can wear. Easy enough to get a spell suppression. Corrupt that just saves you a point or two in the tree. You can do better than this, better corruption, or just a different pair of rare boots with like Tailwind or something. I just like these because they're super cheap to get, easy, and you just don't have to worry about it really. The charge duration doesn't matter because we have 184, and I mean that's a roll, but essentially you're going to have a ton of duration, about 20 seconds on all your charges, thanks to the Restless Ward. So you don't have to worry about it at all. Uh, Obviously, comes Spirit, Void Forge, and then the Spell Suppress here. The other one that I like, this is also not mandatory, but it's really nice. You do need a bunch of intelligence for this build and some strength. So getting some stats here is very helpful, and then global defenses, obviously because we're stacking armor and evasion rating, and we have some energy shield, very nice stat. But the point of this is you can get very nice rolls on the implicits. You just want to make sure that it is Searing X-Charge dominant, which you can search by. You see the Searing X-Charge is grand, and Eater is greater. You can search that on PoE. You just have to have the Searing X-Charge and the Eater of Worlds like uh, tabs ticked, and then you can sort by which one's dominant. But when the Searing Extras is dominant, you have essentially 15% cull, which means we don't have to spec into the Slayer cull over here, and we can grab a ton of AoE off of impact. And AoE is really good for Smite because it can double hit. So if it's anywhere in the AoE radius and it doesn't get hit by the melee hit, it'll get hit by the area of effect damage, which is the lightning portion, or I guess it gets converted, but and then thanks to the attack master here, where we get a +1 strike skills, that will also strike it again with the melee one. So that's a little faster for bosses, but again, it's not really a bossing build. That's just a little more damage you can get in. But if you don't want to do that, you can obviously take this away. You're going to lose about the AoE stacks up on how many things you've killed recently. So if you kill some things before you go to the boss, you have good AoE, and also good for clears. And then you get more damage based on proximity, which also coincides with the close combat gem, which is based on proximity. But if you don't want this, you can take this out, get the headsman, and then use a rare amulet. Or take Endless Hunger to get stun immunity and some more leech, I guess. But we're pretty much leech capped. I think that's all the gear. Everything else is just rares. The recoup on the rings, obviously. The other thing I have is making sure I don't have any auras or my movement skill on Void Forge, so you can swap actually. Still have Leap Slam and Smite Vaal Smite to Sanctum's Metal. This is more for not for delving, because in the darkness you're not really going to be able to keep up Rampage, but in maps you can keep up Rampage pretty easily. So you just swap to this, kill a mob, swap back, and then you have Rampage going. It's essentially free. It just gives you 1% damage and I think movement speed per stack, and then it does varying things as you reach different stack levels. It just helps speed up the clear here. And I got really lucky with the relic. This is a very bad Sanctum running thing. I essentially just went until I got a good relic, and then slapped Ghost Dance on it, called it a day. Just don't do Sanctum anymore. Mostly because it's a melee build, and you have to invest a lot to start one-shotting the Sanctum mobs. And even then, when you do, you can just get like I'm not very good at it, and it's more of like a convenience build for me, just like blitzing through maps and delve. So I didn't focus on it too much after I got a good one, but being able to get Ghost Stance here, as opposed to having to path up it on the tree. Saves a bunch of points, about 5 points or so. So that's nice. It's only about 1 divination for the currency things. You need to slap keystones onto your relics. Yeah, and then for the flasks, these also could probably be optimized. I would definitely replace the sulfur flask with a bottled faith. And then we're running Jade and Granite just to further stack the armor and evasion. And then we have increased armor, increased evasion, reduced effective curses, and increased crit strike on the flasks. And then just a generic bleeding flask. I actually didn't go for a uh, instant recovery flask because most of the stuff you're going to die to in this build is degen when you're not able to hit anything. So having it recover over time works better for me, and obviously just a bleed flask. You can also run a poison flask here. It's pretty similar to bleed. Um, and then for the Pantheon, we're not stun immune, so Brine King is kind of a must, and avoid frozen, reduced effective chill. These are good. So we're sort of mitigating our ailments, the elemental ailments, because I'm not using the purity of elements with various reduced effects of elements or avoid elements on the tree. So for the helm here, you have 25% to avoid, and then on the tree, we have over here another 12% to avoid. So that'll prevent a good chunk of them, in addition to dodging a bunch of the hits that'll actually deal damage to you and inflict the elements. And then we have, I got reduced effective shock here. You can also take it on the tree here. And there's pretty big shocks in Delve, so I like doing this in Delve. Duration of Ignite helps too, but this one's mostly for the improved Burning Ground when you're running the Searing Altars. This is pretty important. And then if you're running into poison issues, because I'm using a bunch of uniques, it's hard to get Chaos Res basically at all. If you were obviously to take this off and take this off, run some rares or run some rare boots, you can cap the Chaos Res and you don't have to worry about it. But if you have a map that rolls like Poison or something, you can just run a Soul Shikari. But you're pretty much locked into Brine King because of you need the Avoid Freeze and the stun, like chain stun immunity. So that's the Pantheon. I also went with Lyra for the Bandits because it's a crit based build. A little bit of resist, a little bit of mana regen, makes leveling easier. Pretty much everything you could want. No complaints about Lyra. The actual tree, we're gonna just run down here, take all of these nodes, get some strength, life, regen, etc., etc. Everything you'd expect. I already talked about courage and that. All this. This one is just a thread of hope, so we can grab these 2 nodes here. It also helps you grab this node, or you can get a Vitality Void for more health. You don't need the Mana Leech here, as I'm currently getting it from a cluster here. But until you get a Field of Flight cluster, you just take this 1 point here. There's also another one over here, but I prefer this one because it also gives you life. We're just taking all the generic life masteries, every single life node we can find. So 1, 2 here, 1, 2 here. These over here, 1, 2 here. These 3 here. And these 3 here for life nodes. And as you see, I'm up to 4K, which is pretty much the minimum amount you need in softcore. At least in my opinion. You can go a little lower, but I like having 4K just to not really get one shot by anything. On top of having the Energy Shield Ghost Dance defensive layers. And then for here, we're just taking more area of effect because the double hit on Smite to get the attack mastery. You definitely need one of the intelligence nodes. As you see, I have 40 intelligence neck on here, and then what is it? This one has 48 intelligence, and we still need to get 122 for the Restless Ward. So I'm at, what, 132? So I could, roll 10 less on this or 10 less on this, and I'd still be fine. But you definitely need some intelligence on the tree. It helps just taking a 30 node. Strength you might need on the tree, but there's a good chunk of strength, and you definitely get more of it on the tree than you do intelligence. And I believe, other than the neck, I'm not running any strength gear. Yeah, so you might need some strength, but usually the neck with like at least a 30 roll is good enough, and you won't need to get a 30. But earlier on, you could definitely take it. For auras, we are running obviously Grace, Determination, Defiance Banner, and Precision. Basically just the generic, sort of the same you would do on a armor stacking smiter. basically you're just maximizing perseverance. And for defenses, we are currently sitting at, with no flasks on, 1400 armor, 2400 evasion. We pop the flask 2340, pop molten shell 27. And then we get more, I believe, if we get hit. Yeah, 30% armor if you've been hit recently, 30% evasion if you haven't been hit recently. So it's not the biggest amount of armor, and you could probably push it higher, especially on a stacker. But if you wanted to play a stacker, it's essentially pretty easy to swap because you're in the same ascendancy. You just swap over to um, a I forget, not gladiator, the other one, duelist. I don't know. You swap over to essentially that one and just, I think, oh, champion. You swap over to champion and just play that. Whoops. Um, but as far as the rest of the tree, we're getting the determination reduced efficiency here, the grace reduced efficiency here, and this whole wheel, and just increased efficiency of auras because the auras are running. It's just like a very good defensive node to have, and the little 8 one there. I was running this for a while, Charisma, with the increased damage per aura, because Smite actually stacks with auras, which is really good, but you actually get more value if you're just running these auras to go and grab Soul of the Steel and Revenge of the Hunted and get the nodes here, because it adds up to the same, and you can just take all of these points away, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points, and then just put them in here. This is like 7 total for those. So I just found that more worth it. We're not running any offensive auras just because I reached enough damage that I didn't really feel like I needed one. I'm not pushing super hard Elder content. I'm just doing like, Alked tier 16s and like 100 to 200 depth delve. Doesn't have to be enough damage. You just have to be able to like live through everything and essentially one shot most of the bosses and you're fine. Other than that, we're getting Call the Arms just as a quality of life because we are running Enduring Cry here just to instantly fill up your rage bar and help sustain Berserk whenever it goes off. And then we're getting all the sword nodes essentially with Frenzy Charge on hit unique enemy. So this allows you to sustain your charges on bosses if like you don't have enough damage. You have endurance charges to gain them when you stun bosses or when you get a stunning hit on bosses, and then this has an 8% when you hit a boss to generate it. So when you get Void Forge, you get all the sword nodes here, and the sword nodes here to get 120 crit chance and little minus multiplier. This is like an 8% damage node even with the reduced multiplier, just because it helps you cap out your crit chance. And then we get the crit node here. There's another crit node here, another crit node here. This one isn't worth it, just remembering, because you have to take the extra point. This one is. I just currently have these points over here because I only have the 2 points, and I want to get one in the phasing just for easier access of phasing in Delve, because phasing is really nice in Delve. There's a bunch of free points. You can probably do this at level 90. I'm 94 right now. You just take out these two essentially. These are sort of fluff points. You take out this point. And then you can start dropping a couple masteries, like some of the life masteries you could drop. You don't have to run a cluster here. You can just take the normal one and run a Secrets of Suffering jewel. Here I just have a generic Corrupted Blood jewel, just to not have corrupted blood on you. And here's Thread of Hope. You pretty much do need the Thread of Hope. If you don't have Thread of Hope, you're going to have to adjust the pathing so that you can come down and get all these. And these nodes are pretty good because you get more move speed here, more attack speed. And remember, you're running more area of effect, more armor. You have 8 charges, so these are pretty good nodes, but it's just a lot of nodes, and you can get 3% damage per node, and you're going to be having 16, so that's a good chunk of damage there. But you have to completely adjust the tree as you're leveling. And there's a couple two-handed axes that I can show in the POB after when you start out. And other than that, it's just the spell suppression. So you take this wheel because the bonus 3%, spell suppression, and crit chance increased by spell suppression is a pretty big node because you're running crit. So yeah, just spell suppression node here, and there's another one here, but we're not taking it. So we're just taking the courage here. There's also 2 here that we're not taking just because I have it on the gear. And then this one also gives you 10% on full life, which is going to be up pretty much all the time, but if it's not, you're still a little overcapped, so it's fine. That's the tree. Oh, actually, there's one more thing. because you're taking the crit, the accuracy node here for the precision mastery, and the life and the frenzy charge, you can just throw in an inspired learning here for free. You don't have to take any bonus nodes. This is basically like a mini headhunter. You just run around. You take one mod when you kill rares. It's obviously not as powerful as headhunter, but it's still extremely strong for mapping and stuff. And yeah, so that's essentially the build. And then I showed the Atlas tree where it's just all the harvest nodes, all of the delve nodes other than these two. When your gear isn't as good, you can take this node here, packed with energy, which gives you +1 max res, 35% increased damage, and 50% movement speed for each sulfide node you take, and it's usually 3 sulfides per map, so 3% all res, 105% damage, and 45% movement speed. This is an insane node, especially if you want to run like an Elder Guardian or a Shaper Guardian map. You can just take this, throw in a Nico's mission, and then insane power boost. Singular focus you can start taking once you have a good chunk of the favored stuff, and I just have Mesa favored with 1 underground river, so we can alternate flip between those two. And like I said, with the harvest, it's good for rerolling fossils and stuff. Yeah, and that's it. And then I guess now I'll just run a red map just to show you how it works. So Searing Exarch, quantity Nicos.
I can't do this just yet.
I will never stop searching for that which sends you spiraling
So right now I'm just gonna run to the
into
boss.
abyss.
My spirit is spent.
You swap here, you get the rampage out. There's the Vaal Smite. You see how it has the double hit there? As you see, we're not quite one-shotting it, but it's fine. Yeah. Minus 4 chaos here. I definitely don't want to have reduced maximum whatever.
Good eye.
We're just gonna run around and kill everything. We're dodging the Sanctum there, because it's just not a mechanic I'm interested in doing. There's a Burning Ground on Death, which because we have immunity to it, doesn't really do anything. I got this. And as you see, we have pretty much 8 charges sustained. Occasionally you'll get power charges from the Assassin's Mark Cursed on Hit, but it's not something to really look out for. Let's see if we can go this way and keep the delirium going. So generally I'm just looking at getting 3 reward types. I'm not invested too heavily in Deli because it's mostly a delving build.
Pretty little rocks. Just for me.
You see the massive stands fine. Player gains, altitudes, yeah, that's fine. Get a nice delirium orb there. And then just finish out the map really quickly. So the damage is pretty good. If you hit Vaal Smite, it does a screen and a half of damage. You can store 2 Vaal Smites at a time as long as you're not using any Vaal skills like Vaal Grace or something. You could throw in Vaal Haste. I'm currently just running just a blind support in the multi-totem setup. It's just a standard multi-totem setup with War Chief and Protector. And I don't know, I just threw in blind because I don't need the culling strike because we're pretty set on culling. We didn't roll a harvest here, which is unfortunate because we have about it's like 60-something% chance to roll a harvest, but I'm not running whatever that one node is that lets you not use fragments in order to give you another 50% increased base chance. But damage is fine, and you can basically pick all the nodes you want from the Searing Exarch.
I can't do this
might
just
kill
yet.
me just because I reduced my fire res, yeah. So you want to watch out for those. If you click like reduce fire res by 100%, you have to be overcapped on fire res, or they will just one-shot you like that. 'Cause that, yeah. And then as
How's
far
the
as
trail,
delving,
Godslayer?
it's pretty easy to just, let me just throw the ores back on here. That was sort of just like a proof of concept of like, you can do all the nodes, just don't click on the ones that will instantly kill you like that.
Hear that?
Let's see what I have. I had a boss there. I'll save that for later. Did I have anything else I was looking to do here? Oh, yeah, I guess there's a currency node here. Even though you're mostly going for fossils, I like picking up the currency nodes just because they used to be really good. So I get the dopamine hit of going to them, even though they don't drop like exalts or divines as much as they used to.
My spirit is spent.
So you go the opposite way here, and you see our regen's pretty fine. And we have Ghost Dance going off. Turn the health flask on. And another thing that's you will notice with this build is it's pretty. If you're just, how do I say this? If you're just starting out a pack, like the very start of the map, it's a little dicey because you don't have any charges stacked up, and currently, because of the way I'm running so many uniques and all that, I'm actually getting, I think, 20% of my cold and lightning resistance from oh, we got a wall here, from the endurance charges. So you're actually not capped on res when you first start the map, but all you essentially have to do is hit smite on one pack, and your endurance charges are going to go, and frenzy charges are going to go to full. But as you see, thanks to Ghost Dance, the recover suppress on damage, the recoup on life, we are pretty good, and you can essentially just sit here in the middle of the packs for a while in the darkness. And then what's really cool is, let me get Enrage out, or the what's it called? Rampage. On these big nodes, you can just run around and collect the mobs, and then if you just hit Vaal Smite, they all die. And then you can store 2 charges of Vaal Smite at a time, and they come up lightning quick. And let's see, is Berserk triggered? Yeah, Berserk's triggered because my Berserk did trigger. So you're pretty much always going to be capped at 50 rage just because of all of the regen you have that's going towards your rage. And that was one of the rampage triggers. So that was pretty good. That's essentially what I've been playing. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'll link the POB in the description, along with some notes. Let me see here.
I can't do this just yet.
Let me go to the hideout and then flip this one on. For the POB here, you're running at about 5.7 with some POB warrior stuff, but if you turn off, where is it? If you turn off Berserk, because this isn't going to have 110 uptime, you're going to lose about 1 million DPS, and this is more realistically what you're going to have all the time, is about a 4 million. And again, this is like if the configuration here is if you're next to an enemy, you have your Trinity stacked up, you have your full rage, you have Onslaught and Fortify from your belt, and then you have full elemental things from your hits from the Suffering of Secrets. And we have, I think I have Hydra Spear and cast when damage taken for a little exposure. It doesn't really work, but it's just, what else am I going to put there? So yeah, oh, the other thing I wanted to show is where is it? Here we go. This is the axe I used when I was starting out before I had a Void Forge. It has a ton of elemental damage on it, and then when you use a War Cry, you get 150% increased elemental damage. So this actually does a ton of damage. The problem is pretty much all of it is cold damage, so you're not going to be able to sustain Trinity, which is fine because this was essentially just a farming axe to get a Void Forge, get a 6-link, etc., etc. It's pretty easy to farm early delve stuff, and whites and yellows pretty much no problem. It's a little tough to go into red just because you're going to be lacking a lot of damage. And the first thing I would say is you probably want to get an interrogation jewel, and then get a Void Forge and a 6-link. You can run around on a little Restless Sword, like a 4 or 5 link, or you can choose to use a like a Tabula Rasa or just a corrupted 6-link. I'd probably use a 5-link rested ward over a corrupted 6-link, just so you can benefit from everything. And then Coam Spirit. Before you get this, your regen's going to be insane with the Restless Ward, and then when you get this, your damage is going to spike, so just keep that in mind. That's pretty much it. So, League turned out well. The mechanic's cool, even if this build sucks at it. So, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching.